Chapter 12. Brand's stark, windowless house was just as bleak as Sophie remembered. Everything was grey, the dull stone walls, the jagged, dusty ground. Even the sky seemed to be in a perpetual state of gloom. "There's something off about this place," Sandor said, pulling Sophie closer to his side. He'd insisted on coming, and after what had happened last time, Grady had agreed. But he'd warned Sandor that he'd have to wait outside, doubting Brand could handle the sight of a goblin. Sandor sniffed the frigid wing. "I can't detect a single sign of life." "We've burned everything before we built this place," Grady explained, leading Sophie up the crooked path. "The only thing that lives here is Brand. The rest is just dust and ash." "Well, I don't like it," Sandor muttered. Sophie didn't either, but Brand was afraid of fire and heat and any kind of kindling. She could understand his reason for the phobias, but she couldn't imagine living somewhere so cold and empty. Grady paused at the narrow steps that led to the metal front door. "You need to wait here, Sandor, and stay out of sight." Sandor reached into one of his pockets and handed Grady a bladed throwing star. "Do not be afraid to use this." "I can handle Brand. I've been taking care of him for 16 years." 16 years. Sophie had never thought about what a burden taking care of Brand must be. His parents had been too mentally fragile from their grief to handle visiting their broken son, so Grady and Adeline had been the ones to find him somewhere to live and check on him from time to time, all the while coping with their own loss. "Take it for extra security," Sandor insisted. "You've said yourself that this elf is unpredictable." Grady sighed as he shoved the blade into his cape pocket. "You're sure you're up for this?" he asked Sophie. She nodded, not trusting her voice as they started up the stairs. They both hesitated at the top, taking several deep breaths. Then Grady pulled the dangling chain, making a low chime echo through the silence. The tone was still ringing when the metal door flew open, slamming into the stone walls. Grady clutched his chest. "I think you just gave me a heart attack, Brand. You've never met us at the door." "Well, you've never stopped by between anniversaries," Brand replied, his voice as hoarse and wheezy as Sophie remembered. "So I guess it's a day of firsts." "Don't stare at his scars," Sophie reminded herself, focusing on Brand's strange yellow-orange bathrobe-like shirt. But her eyes still darted to the bumps and dents and red splotches that ruined one side of his chin and cheek. Bitter souvenirs even Elvin couldn't erase. "No, Adeline?" Brand asked, stepping aside to let them pass. "We're expecting a pair of Apatosaurus to arrive this afternoon, and someone had to be there to assist," Grady explained. "Is that okay?" Brand said nothing as he slammed the door and led them into his spare sitting room. He motioned for them to take their pick of the 4 metal stools bound to the floor on large springs. But Sophie waited for Brand to choose first. Then she sat in the one farthest away. "No custard bursts either, I see," Brand said, shaking his head with a sigh. "So far, the surprise isn't a very good one." "No, I suppose it's not," Grady admitted, "but perhaps this might help." He reached into his cape and pulled out a silver pouch tied with bright red string. Brand leaned forward. "Is that—" "Yep, a whole bag of indigo bears, just for you." Grady held it out to him, and Brand eyed it for a second, like Sophie's old cat used to when she first showed him a new toy. He pounced just as quickly, snatching it away and tearing into his treasure. It took him several seconds to untangle the string, shredding it to bits as he sank into his chair, pulling out a fist-sized blue cluster and shoving it into his mouth. Blue drool trickled down his lips as he struggled to chew the oversized mouthful. But that didn't stop him from saying, "I guess this is almost good, but next time I want custard bursts. Adeline will bake a double batch." Adeline, Grady promised. "And I want more of these too." Brand shoved another in his mouth, covering the bottom lip with blue slime. Sophie had no idea what indigo burrs were, but she was pretty sure she never wanted to try them. "So are you going to tell me why you are here?" Brand asked, spraying spittle with each word. "Or do I have to guess? Actually, that might be fun." His sharp blue eyes bored into Sophie's like laser beams. "It has to do with her, doesn't it? You never made surprise visits before she came along. So, what would she want? He rubbed his chin, smearing the blue drool into his scars. Sophie had to look away. She studied the room, looking for any clues to how Brand spent his long, lonely days. There were no books or paper, no gadgets or tools, nothing but bare walls and empty space, like a really clean prison. You can't have it! Brand screamed, sending Sophie scrambling to her feet. Grady rushed in front of her, but Brand was backing slowly away. You can't have it, he repeated, sinking to the floor in the corner. It's mine, mine! He said the word over and over, making Sophie realize what he meant. The last time she'd been here, Brand had tackled her and stolen her Reuben crest pin. I gave the pin to you, she reminded him. I don't want it back. Mine, Brand agreed, rocking back and forth. Mine, mine, mine. Yes, Brand, it's yours. So can we calm down and get back to why we're really here? Grady asked him. Brand's eyes slowly cleared. Sorry, he mumbled, crawling back to his chair. Carry on. Grady grabbed his arm around Sophie, keeping her at his side as he said, Okay, you know how you get headaches sometimes. Sophie might be able to find the cause of them. They decided not to let Brand what they really were do not to they decided not to tell Brand what they really were doing, not wanting to get his hopes up until they knew if the healing was a possibility. Brand shoved another indie goober into his mouth. Oh, really? Sophie nodded. It's a trick. I learned it a while ago, and I think it might work on you. And what would I have to do? He asked as he licked the blue slime off his lips. Just hold still for a second while Sophie sends a little warmth into your mind, Willie told him. Brand shook his head, whipping it from side to side so hard it looked like it would detach from his neck. Nothing warm, nothing. It's not really warm, Sophie jumped in. More like a tingle, like if you've ever had your leg fall asleep. She had no idea if that was true, but that was how she imagined it would feel, and it seemed like a good enough explanation. It was enough to make Brand stop shaking. Okay, he said, a hint of smile curling one side of his lips. Let's see what you can do. Grady squeezed Sophie's shoulder as she closed her eyes, reaching out with her consciousness for the feel of Brand's mind. All she could find was heat, a fire inside her head. Sweat beaded on her skin as she stretched her mind further, but no matter how hard she strained, she couldn't break through the wall of flames to make contact. I need to place my hands on your temples, she told Brand. It won't hurt. It will just help me focus the energy. She moved slowly as she reached for his temples, like she was reaching to pet a wild dog that could bite her hand any second. But Brand held still, not even flinching when her fingers came to rest on his fever-hot skin. The rush of heat was stronger this time, but Sophie was able to shove her way through collapsing into a suffocating darkness with sharp edges that scratched at her mental barriers. She ignored the pain and rallied her concentration, pushing deeper into the mire. A vivid scene rampaged into her mind. Jolie clinging to Brand as a firestorm explodes around them. The force tosses Brand backward, but Jolie is surrounded, the wild flames strangling tighter and tighter until her face is lost in the smoke and her screams fade to nothing. Stop! Brand screamed, grabbing Sophie's wrist. Pain launched up her arm as she tried to pull free, but she couldn't get away until Grady grabbed Brand and tossed him backward, slamming him into the wall. Brand crumbled to the floor, pressing his hands over his ears and mumbling, Stop! 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 Are you okay? Grady asked Sophie. Before she could answer, Sandor charged into the room, waving his sword and demanding to know what was going on. Brand covered his face and screamed. You're making it worse! Grady shouted, shoving Sandor back toward the door. I have everything under control. That's not what it looks like. Sandor's eyes focused on Sophie's wrist. She covered the wound with her hand, but he still insisted. I'm taking Miss Foster with me. No, Sophie told him, relieved at the steadiness of her voice. All of her instincts was telling her to run, flee, get far, far away. But she couldn't ignore what she'd seen in Brand's mind. His memory of Jolie's death had been sickening and horrifying, but it had also been clear, not scrambled up or shattered like the broken memories she'd seen. There had to be something left of Brand's consciousness. I can help you, she told Bran, waving Sandor back as she took a cautious step closer. I can heal you. Heal me? He asked as Grady gasped. The shadows seemed to crawl deeper into Bran's scars as he uncovered his face and asked, What do you mean, heal me? Heal your mind, Sophie said quietly. Make you better. Better, Bran repeated. How will healing make me better? You'll be able to think clearly, Grey. He jumped in. Go back to normal? Bran screamed. There is no normal! He whipped his bag of indigo bell at Grady, and one of the clusters splattered Grady's cheek. Bran, please, Grady said as the goo slid down his face. If you would just listen. No, you listen! Nothing will ever be normal because nothing will ever bring her back. Grady closed his eyes, and his voice was impossibly sad as he said, I know you miss her. I do too. No, you don't. If you did, you would have broken like me. Then you would have known that there's nothing without her. Nothing. Bran's voice cracked and he buried his face in his hands. Get out! Bran, please. I said get out! The words were so sharp, Sophie could practically feel them prick her skin. But they weren't as scary as what Bran whispered while Sandor dragged her Grady out to the door. I never want to be healed. Never, 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 never. Sophie didn't feel Grady take her hand or the warm light whisk her way. She didn't feel the pain in her wrist, though she was sure that would hit her when she got home. All she felt were the claws of fear and doubt raging inside her, twisting and tearing and shredding her resolve. Because if Brand didn't want to be healed, Prentice might not want to be either.